Hello. Now, there are many things that may go wrong in enterprise system implementation projects. Of course, I don't want to be pessimistic or demotivate you in any way. The reason why we need to discuss about them is obviously to make you aware of them so that you can act upon them when you are faced in the real life. Okay, now let's see what we have. Perhaps I should say that I'll not go into the details of all of these causes, but highlight the ones that I think the most important ones. And perhaps the most commonly known group of causes is the one related to the user involvement. So there's a tendency, in fact, in us to focus too much on the technology and kind of miss the people side. Now, it's very common simply because it is easier, and I must say it is also quite fun to deal with the technology rather than the people. But the eventual outcome, if you do so, is the lack of understanding of the user requirements and in turn lack of understanding what the system should do actually, which results in a definite failure. Top management commitment. Another or lack of top management commitment and leadership. This is always a kind of one of the top success factors or failure factors, if you like. Lack of them guarantees a failure. And in fact, this is true for any kind of an initiative within the organization, not only in enterprise system implementation. Any initiative without a top management executive involvement and commitment, failure. Boom. Full stop. Now, people management is also another one that requires utmost attention, in fact. Managing the expectations of people, listening them to manage the resistance to change, communication are always top success factors, in fact. The next one is very much like the one I mentioned above. It's too naive to assume that people will be willing to change even when they complain about the existing systems or the current way of working, the current practices. Don't assume so. Another related one is the issues about the user requirements or requirement failures. Again, focusing too much on the technology without gaining a good understanding of what users really need, how the processes should change, and how the IT should be configured to support it is a recipe for failure. Okay, now the issues listed here are also quite important, but I'll not discuss them in detail. You can read them here or in the lecture handouts if you like. Instead, I would like to highlight 2 points here. Now, the first one, you may notice that we still did not see any problem in the first slide. Any problem related to the technology, software, hardware, part of the system. The problems that are originating, as you might have already guessed or noticed, related mostly to the other components of the EIS, people, structure, and process components. As I said before, it's easier to handle technology-related problems, but the other ones are much more difficult, and in fact, so that's the reason why we tend to focus most on them or want to ignore those parts and those parts and focus on the technology rather. As someone said once, we never have a problem of we don't have enough technology. It's usually the other ones that we kind of oversee or miss. The second point that I would like to highlight is that there's always something that we can do to prevent these happening. So that we're not discussing these. These are not something that we can't avoid. There's always we can avoid them. We have already discussed things that we can do to avoid them, and we'll still mention more of them in the upcoming videos. There's always something that you can do to prevent or minimize the risks of these things happening. Okay, we have discussed a few of them. methodology, following a methodology is one of them, and project management we'll see in next. We'll also be seeing in the next videos. So, I mean, without further ado, in fact, see you in the next videos.